when they went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Here, take the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. I am flying solo this morning, so there was a little delay. I only have so many hands. I can't stop the video and unmute myself all at once. Yay, they're on time. Might not be AI. Yes, it's not AI, but we've already made our first unforced error of the morning when I couldn't get my microphone unmuted before I started talking. So welcome this morning, everybody. I've got my solo setup today, which basically means I'm running two computers, a couple different screens. It's kind of actually a decent setup. When we get to the new office, I might explore doing it like this. Anyways, it's going to take me just a moment to get myself completely organized here. Sound check for everybody. Is the sound okay out there? Any issues? Anybody noticing any problems? Now's your chance to talk. Before we jump into the stuff I have to talk about today, there was quite a bit going on in the news yesterday. Holy smokes. Kash Patel went to the Senate and had a hearing, and that was full of fireworks. Probably the first time in the history of our republic that you had a cabinet secretary in hostile and open yelling and crosstalk and accusations and calling a senator a buffoon. It was pretty impressive. So anyways, we're going to play a couple clips from that. I would love to do like a full day long deep dive on everything that came out in that hearing. I listened to probably most of it. I don't know. It was a lot of it. And it was pretty fireworky. I'll tell you what, Christopher Wray and Kash Patel could not be more different. They're completely different people. So to start out, I am going to be sharing with you Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis was testifying, and what you're watching, Scott Adams describes as basically like two different movies on two different screens. Okay, you've got two separate mentalities going on. So Tom Tillis, he's the senator from North Carolina. For context here, people like Mike Benz, who is a real aficionado on the deep state, formerly worked at the State Department. He is very cautious of North Carolina because I hope I don't get this wrong, but I think it's Fort Bragg. Anyways, wherever Army base is there does all of the intelligence psyops. So January 6th, a lot of that was run out of North Carolina. There's a whole bunch of things that North Carolina plays this weird piece. And the reason is because that's basically the equivalent of the military's CIA is right there in North Carolina. So when Tom Tillis goes so hard over the top for a Republican to be anti-January 6 protesters, right, to the point to where he's holding up confirmations because people have supported January 6 protesters in the past, aka Ed Martin. Anytime you're looking at what he's doing, you kind of have to have a little bit of an open eye. You know, what's involved here? And after yesterday's show, if you'll remember, we talked about there might be a connection here with the ROTC and this Charlie Kirk shooter. That's where this kind of starts to raise eyebrows. So this is Tom Tillis basically saying, you know, the violence is coming from both sides.
Within 24 hours of Mr. Kirk's shooting, we had the guy that does the podcast for the War Room and another guy who's denied the Sandy Hook shootings say we're at war. Now, how on earth, and I do believe it's a smaller number, but it's a number that has an influence. How on earth are we de-escalating the situation? And with the tensions as high as they were last week, with going out and saying we're at war. I'm not asking you to respond to this question. I'm just saying that there are people out here on our side of the aisle that still need to look in the mirror. Even if you agree that it's a lower number, bad is bad no matter how many numbers they are. And that kind of rhetoric and that kind of mobilization makes your job more difficult and puts us in a position where we're not being as productive as you want the FBI and state and local law enforcement to be. Within 24 hours of Mr. Kirk's shooting,
So he's basically saying here, within 24 hours, oh man, I'm going to have to get better at my smooth operation here. As far as turning on and off videos, I like to make the show actually smooth and, have some kind of production value, even though it's a one-man band this morning. So we'll do our best. So he's acting like there's these two paths. Like, well, there's violence on the left and right. Now, Senator Schmidt from Missouri I can't remember if he was after or before that, and he had a very different take, and he was basically countering exactly what Tom Tillis was trying to say here. Now, the reason this is important, like I said, there's two movies playing out. There's one faction of the ruling party, which is the conservative Republican MAGA party, whatever you want to call it, right? This MAGA party. And one faction is really more uniparty, right? These are the Tom Tillises. Lindsey Graham falls into this category. They're kind of like very often doing things with the left, and they want cordial, and they want, rules, and they want tradition and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got some populist leaders like Schmidt, and you've got Schmidt and Josh Hawley, and there's a handful of, Tommy Tuberville, kind of more populist-y oriented. So this is Eric Schmidt, who's got quite a bit of clout here, and he sits next to Senator Britt, who is also one of these kind of mealy mouth, middle of the ground people. So this is Senator Schmidt. Let me share this with you.
We've heard years of the left, their loudest voices calling anyone on the right extremist MAGA Republicans, fascists, Nazis, an existential threat to democracy. Check yourself. And don't give me this both sides bullshit. Mr. Director, I want to ask you. Tell me if each one of the following perpetrators or alleged perpetrators were acting from a left-wing or right-wing political violence. The man who tried to kill Republican congressman at the congressional baseball practice, nearly killing House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, left-wing or right-wing violence?
Sir, I believe it was a left-wing ideology.
Okay. Burned down cities during the Summer of Love in the George Floyd riots, left-wing violence or right-wing violence?
Sir, I'll rely on you on these. I don't have off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay, left-wing. The Waukesha Christmas Parade massacre, left-wing or right-wing violence? Left-wing. The Lee Zeldin stabbing attempt, left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Covenant school shooting in Nashville, left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on President Trump, left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Trump International West Palm Beach assassination attempt, left-wing. The Abundant Life Christian school shooting, left-wing. The United Care CEO's murder, left-wing. Tesla's burned, keyed, damaged, firebombed, left-wing. The murders at the Israeli embassy, left-wing. The ICE facilities firebombed, left-wing. The Minnesota Catholic school shooting, left-wing. The anti-white Charlotte and North Carolina stabbing, left-wing. The attempted Utah News State firebombing, left-wing. And now, of course, the culmination of this vile trend, a left-wing assassination of Charlie Kirk. So don't give me this both sides. If we want to get to unity, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Free speech, yes. Political violence, no. But let's be honest.
Got to be honest about it. That, to me, well, let me get my camera going. That, to me, is exactly the truth, right? You've got nothing but left-wing violence. And you know what the best solution to left-wing violence is? It is some sports. Hey, football fanatics. Guys, I'm doing my first ad. I'm always jealous of Ron doing these, but now I get to see it on my screen over here. Hey, football fanatics, are you ready for some primetime NFL action? Tune in to Westwood One for all your gridiron glory you crave, from jaw-dropping touchdowns to game-changing plays. Don't miss a moment of the excitement. Catch every snap, every tackle, and every victory on Westwood One. You can listen to the NFL on the NFL app, on the Westwood One Sports app, on westwoodonesports.com, via Westwood One station streams, or by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports. If it's the NFL, it's on Westwood One. I have really great memories of watching football in prison and jail. I watched a Super Bowl in prison. It was pretty fun. And now I say that looking back, being free, I can say that. I can't say that when I'm there. Okay. Watching the Super Bowl from prison was not fun when I was there. But looking back, it was like, I could check that off the box. It was kind of fun. I will say one thing that Westwood One doesn't have, and what are you going to do? They don't have tickets to Felony Field. The first time I watched a softball game in prison on the prison yard, the field was called Felony Field, and the guy sitting next to me was there for mortgage fraud. He leans over and he's like, "Hey, these are really exclusive tickets. Not very many people can watch a game in here. You know the price to get tickets." And I was like, "Yeah, very few people are going to watch a game on Felony Field." So if you're watching football, consider Westwood One. And I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to watch any prison games. Okay, so that was fun. I've never done one of those before. That was really fun. Thanks for indulging me, guys. Okay, so Eric Schmidt is basically saying we've got a whole slew of left-wing violence, and it's not really coming from the right. And he goes ahead and labels person after person after person. Thank you, Ponyboy, for the transition compliment. All right, now let's talk about this shooter, because clearly in this hearing with Kash Patel, there were a couple things going on, right? A lot of senators just trying to get their hits. They're just trying to get, some talking points and little clips that are going to circulate. There was a lot of questioning about the Tyler Robinson and kind of the implications and who are you going after. There was some talk about that. And I wanted to share this with you. And this is the text message exchange that happened between Tyler Robinson and his boyfriend, girlfriend, I don't know, whatever, transgender friend. So this is what it says. So what happened was Tyler Robinson, let me make sure I'm looking at the right message here. I want to get the beginning. Okay, so Tyler Robinson messages his boyfriend and says, I need you to go look under my keyboard in my bedroom. So he goes, looks under the keyboard in the bedroom, and there's a note that has since been destroyed that says that, he was the killer, somehow a confession. So the boyfriend comes back, and after reading the note says, "What? You're joking, right? Robinson, I'm still okay, my love, but I am stuck in Orem for a little while longer. Yet shouldn't be long until I can come home. But I got to grab my rifle. Still, to be honest, I had hoped to keep the secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, I thought they caught the person. Robinson, no. They grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in a similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week. I believe I can get close to it, but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson, I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I don't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK, I don't know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about Prince. I have to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find Prince. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. This really stinks. And then he goes, judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Robinson, delete this exchange. Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it's very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Robinson, you are all I worry about, love. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Okay. So that was released yesterday in the charging documents for Tyler Robinson. That is a full confession. It tells you everything that he did. He pre-planned it. It was based on, hatred and stuff like that. Wow. That feels like a bow just got tied on this case. And, that's it. Here's your lone wolf. He planned it by himself for a week. He set it up. He took a hunting rifle. His parents are conservative. He's been, deep state psyoped into being a tranny lover, or whatever the case is. No offense meant. And here we are. Seems cool, right? Okay. I don't like this at all. Here's why I don't like this at all. Somebody dropped this into ChatGPT. And before I read this, which it's on the screen for those of you watching, you're probably already reading it. But the charging documents that the government used in my case had lies in it, had things that were just completely pulled out of thin air, not based in any kind of reality. They were ascribing things like intent and things like that. And after I was arraigned and I called the defense attorney, he was like, "Oh, that's just the government's best hits. Like, don't worry. Like that's not a big deal." And I was like, "Okay," because that was crazy. I can't believe that they wrote that stuff down, and you'd almost think they hadn't talked to me. It was like the things I said in my interview didn't matter. And so someone took this text message exchange, dropped it into ChatGPT, and asked, whatever prompts to ask, could it be real? Possible. So this is ChatGPT's response to, could this text message exchange be real? It's possible, but very unlikely because of how detailed, staged, and incriminating it is. More likely, it's fabricated, either by a human writing a mock transcript for dramatic effect, or by AI prompted to generate a fake chat log about a violent event. The stylistic mix of slang plus exposition and narrative flow lean towards an AI-assisted creation. I tend to think that way, and here's why. Murray on Twitter has this to say in his analysis. He says, "I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I have a really hard time believing in a short text exchange the alleged shooter, 1, makes his confession, 2, confirms location of the weapon, 3, confirms the type of weapon, 4, confirms it was wrapped in a towel, 5, confirms his motive, 6, exonerates the decoy, George Zinn, the screaming man, 7, admits to the bullet engravings, 9, confirms the wardrobe change, 10, confirms how long he's been planning it, 11, discloses the existence and location of a now destroyed pre-written confession note, and 12, randomly tells his boyfriend that his dad is diehard MAGA, as if we wouldn't already know given the nature of their relationship, and 12, and is worried about his dad grandpa being upset if he doesn't come home with the rifle, not the fact that he just used it to commit murder, not to mention a 22-year-old terminally online Zoomer using phrases like squad car, drop point, swept the area, my vehicle, till I died of old age, my old man." And then he goes on to say, "I'm sorry, I just don't believe it." This is really, really difficult, right? Doug Wyatt, good morning. Good morning, buddy. This is really difficult because these things happened. Charlie Kirk is dead, right? I don't believe, I saw a conspiracy theory yesterday, the whole Cash Patel saying, "See you in Valhalla, Charlie," right? And then the picture on the screen in one of the pictures that they released with Tyler Robinson is this video game, and it might be Valhalla, and there's a whole big signal, and there's some island called Goat Island, and there's a town called Valhalla, and that's basically some secret resort hideout for people in like ultra witness protection. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Nope, no way. No, don't believe that. However, do I believe there might be a little ROTC military tie-in with intelligence with this super intelligent man who, remember, we found out almost immediately that this guy's like top 1 percentile for physics, math, basically reading everything in ACT or SAT, excuse me, and, got a big old scholarship to go to school, right? Nothing about this and how he approached this, being a shooter on an open roof, keeping his cell phone with him, text messaging this things. I don't know if that was a Discord or text messaging. I don't remember seeing it disclosed what it was, but all of that makes no sense. If you've watched a couple episodes of Law and Order or any of these true crime shows, reverse engineer what the cops do. They get warrants, they get subpoenas, they do geofencing. There's so many things they can do to prevent and or find this stuff. The idea that this very intelligent man would go about doing this and then make a confession like that online, he knows he's toast, or he's dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, I understand when I was in prison, I met people who did not have cause and effect worked out very well. Like they couldn't associate and make, how cause and effect worked. I don't see that in this young man. He doesn't fit that profile. This just screams out, there's something more here. I'll accept the narrative that this is like brainwashing by some underground chat rooms that are filled with hate and vitriol and, denying reality and gender questioning and stuff like that. I'll accept that. But don't feed me this load of text messages that looks like it was created by an AI chatbot after the fact to make sure it hit all the bullet points. Dear AI, create a conversation between this person and this person stating, make sure it includes all the following things. There you go. And even chatbot recognized that this could possibly be AI created. Okay. I find it, again, incredulous to me that there's just this plethora of social media information, whereas in the Crook shooting, we had nothing. Right? It's like the opposite. I don't know. I don't buy it. In my opinion, with the Crook shooting, this is my belief. I don't know this, but it's my belief that it wasn't successful and his social media presence was either not released or it was scrubbed. By not released, what I mean is I believe that the intelligence agencies have the capacity to have a social media footprint ready to plug into the internet that most people cannot tell has not always been there. Right. So they say the internet's forever but not everybody knows how to verify what's been on the internet. Right. You use tools like the Wayback Machine, but I believe, because I know for a fact they can scrub the Wayback Machine, so they can even take that stuff off. So I think there's a way for them to basically insert a person. Like if you need to create a deep cover for a CIA agent, you can create an online profile so that when people are background checking them, they've got, a 20-year history online. That's kind of how they do it. And that's how intelligence officers will background check other people's. They'll go look for their long, extensive online footprint, and that tells them they're a real person. So I believe in the Thomas Crook situation, they just didn't release the background identity because he needed to disappear, right? They didn't want it to look like whatever they had set up. That's my opinion. I have no evidence to support that at all. See how I can say that openly without any challenges at all? Because it's the truth. I don't have any evidence to say otherwise. Now, this is. Oh, what's happening? You guys can still hear me? Something got a little weird there for just a minute. Don't know what it was. Okay, so this is a former intel officer who is talking about how under the Biden administration, they were tasked with going into these Discord servers and these dark corners of the internet to try to find extremists.
The reason I'm mentioning this is because after that, the Biden administration announced that they were going to partner, like the FBI and other intelligence agencies were going to partner with Discord to heavily monitor these chats to make sure these things aren't going on. So while a lot of people are wondering, well, was this chat room, was like this radical leftism, was this like 764 theme nihilism, my mind always goes to foreknowledge. Were there informants in the chat? Was the FBI monitoring these chat rooms in some other fashion? These are the questions that I don't think Cash will be asked at the congressional hearings, but people need to be asking about this. Like, what did the FBI know? Did any other intelligence agency have this chat room monitored?
Yeah. If they were supposed to have been in the chat room and they were receiving funding, then did they do it or not? And I think that is the big question here. Is there a possibility there's foreknowledge? If there was foreknowledge, in my opinion, there's a possibility there was some planning. That is my opinion. And here's the thing. I'm not the only person that thinks that this is like fishy as all get out. Here's Steve Bannon, my spirit animal. He's talking about how he doesn't buy it either.
We have to escalate And it's not towards violence. Have you seen anybody in Charlie Kirk's arena? Have you seen anybody on the right go burn down anything, go threaten anybody? No, but we're going to get to the bottom and destroy this. Gave a talk to the CPI guys last night. That's Senator DeMint and Mark Meadows' kind of umbrella organization for conservatives, like conservative leaders. And I said, this is an inflection point, that those that have just been going along to get along have gotten us here because they haven't stood up. And now you see with what happened to Charlie Kirk. And as bad as it's presented in Utah, I'm not buying all of it. I'm particularly not buying those text messages. It just seems too stilted, too much like a script, actually a bad script. So we got to get to the bottom of it. You have to designate these groups. You heard Aaron Sabarium from Free Beacon. He's got this piece that you should read just about all the other tweets that were out there, right, that seem amazingly prescient for Charlie Kirk coming to, quite frankly, a college that not a lot of people know about, a university that not a lot of people know about, although I think it's the largest university, bigger than the University of Utah or Brigham Young in the state of Utah. You've got to get to the bottom of these groups. You got to get to the bottom of Antifa. You got to see if there's any connections to Butler. We got a whole lot of work to do, right? A whole lot of work to do. And no, I
find it interesting that he says we got to see if there's any connections to Butler, Pennsylvania. What's the connection between Tyler Robinson and Thomas Crooks? Now, Bannon is just like anybody else. He could be completely a blowhard, but there are times where he drops about being in meetings with Pam Bondi, going and meeting with the people, figuring out this kind of strategy. So when he says something like that, to me, it carries just a little bit of weight.
I'm not buying the script that was in the text messages. I think so much more has got to be done about this. I think the parents ought to be brought in. I think everybody in the discourse channel, the roommate. What do you mean? The roommate sounds like their accessory and not turning him in. He did this text message hours and hours before. Why is that any different than the Boston bomber, where the 4 roommates went to prison because they didn't turn him in as soon as it came up on the television? So there's a whole lot of information we need, and we're going to keep the tip of the bayonet ready to kind of nudge people along to make sure we get it. And if that's called escalation, Tom Tillis, this is why you are being shoved off the stage. You got yanked off the stage, bro. We sent you home, you and your staff, right? Guys like you, losers like you that have just stood in the way is the reason the country's in the shape it's in. It's the reason that guys like heroes like Charlie Kirk put their life on the line every day when they go in these cesspools called colleges, because you have not stood up. You have not done your job. You have not thwarted this when you had the opportunity to. Escalate, you damn right we're going to escalate. Sure.
Yeah, escalate, we're doing it. That's a good take by Steve Bannon. I mean, he's in his last couple episodes, he's been talking about, 1 minute he's got the rifle in his leg, next minute it's not, next minute he's, running, next minute he's hobbling, next minute he's jumping off a roof. Where's this gun? Where's this box? Right? He shows up to the thing with the gun in his pant leg, but he has a box. How did the gun end up in a box? Too many unanswered questions. And the diabolical thing about this is it's not allowing proper space to mourn. Right? We're already discussing details of how this could have happened. Did we know the shooter beforehand? All that kind of stuff. It's not allowing us the proper space to mourn. And this is so important that a narrative gets set, and it's so important that the truth come out. It's frustrating because I'd like to just sit back for a minute and, kind of mourn this, but instead I've got to have my spidey senses up because things are getting kind of hairy. This is Glenn Beck, and Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson both have expressed exactly what I was expressing yesterday on the show. And that is this one of those things where our virtue is going to be weaponized against us and we're going to become the thing we hate?
Of Charlie Kirk. We have been asking for this to be reinstated. This Smith-Mundt Act has to be reinstated. But after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there is a new wave of enthusiasm for this, as there should be. But some people on our side are now demanding more than just a firewall. You go to change.org and there's petitions for a Charlie Kirk Act. And it will not only stop government propaganda, but it goes further than that. It starts to punish private media, educators, social platforms for spreading what they call false narratives. So this is our side saying, yeah, well, now we want the power to do what they did. Okay? Hear me clearly. Accountability matters. Lives are destroyed, reputations are smeared, and that matters. But we have systems in place for that. What this proposal opens is a new door, a door where government decides what is and isn't falsehood, and the government cannot do that. History teaches us once the government claims the authority to define truth, liberty is gone. Okay? Now enter Mike Lee. Mike Lee has another proposal. Mike Lee has a version that he is submitting to Congress and trying to get it passed, and every American should be for this, right or left. Every American should be for this. He's not going to reinvent the wheel. He just wants the old firewall put back, period. That's it. The government must not and cannot propagandize its own people. Restore the very bright red line that was established in 1948. It's not about silencing speech. It's about preventing the most powerful institution on earth with the endless resources of that institution, the government, and the endless reach from turning its fire hose of influence in on the American people. This is why it matters. I want you to think of football. Oh boy, dangerous. You wouldn't let the referee in a football game put on a jersey and join one of the teams, okay? But that's what the repeal did. It let the government become both the referee and the player in the arena of ideas. Mike Lee is saying, put the stripes back on their jerseys. Make sure they're in black and white stripes so we know exactly who they are. Change.org and some people on our side want to make the ref not only a player, but the judge, the jury, and the executioner. It cannot happen. I'm telling you, if this goes through, Mike Lee is proposing something that is clean, doesn't have any of this in. So support the Mike Lee Monk Act. But if you're hearing people talk.
Yes. So Mike Lee's got a bill that would restore the Smith-Mundt Act, which would be great. And we are going to talk about that and all of its implications as soon as I get done talking to you about my new chair. I am going to be getting a new chair at the new office, and I have decided I'm going to be getting one of these Technosport chairs because they have been an occasional sponsor for us. So, looking for a comfortable chair and a unique option for your gaming setup or your podcast setup or your office desk setup, Technosport.com has a wide range of ergonomic chairs with an array of colors that will definitely bring your setup to the next level. Always comfy, never boring. Technosport. Use code RUMBLE for 10% off your entire order. And if you're an office person or someone who does spend a lot of time sitting at one of these office chairs, you've got to go check out that website. I'm not being silly or joking when I say I have visited the website at least 5 times this week in the last 3 days of this week, just trying to decide on my last 2 or 3 options on what chair I want for the new office. So it's pretty good. I think you guys will like it when I get it. I'll show it to you. But technosportusa.com, you can go check out there for new chairs. Okay, so that is Glenn Beck talking about how Charlie Kirk would not want this. He would not want his death to then bring in censorship. And I think that is absolutely critical because that is the antithesis of what Charlie Kirk believed in. And this is a big deal. Pam Bondi made a unbelievably huge blunder, and we played it on the show yesterday, where she talked about hate speech and how hate speech, we're going to go out and we're going to target different organizations that want hate speech. Matt Walsh, who we played the longer video of yesterday, that was like, listen, saying things like there are only 2 genders is not hate. It's the most true of true things you can say. You guys are the ones that engage in this delusional hyperbole. So Pam Bondi yesterday, as a result of Office Depot firing 2 employees who refused to print a poster of Charlie Kirk for a memorial saying it was propaganda. Office Depot fired the employees, and then Pam Bondi made a threat that she would go after Home Depot, or Office Depot, not Home Depot, Office Depot. Matt Walsh made a comment, and it got retweeted by some important characters, essentially saying, fire Pam Bondi. Why? Why fire Pam Bondi? Because he says, we fought for so long to deny service as business owners, right? We fought for so long to deny service, and here you're going to take all that progress away. And he's like, what's happening right now is there's an immune response in our system to this violence. There's been a tipping point with Charlie Kirk, and now the immune response is saying truth is truth and everything else can be blown down, right? And one of those things is free speech. And so I was really encouraged yesterday that there was such an immune response to Pam Bondi essentially saying she was going to target people over hate speech. And you can go mince the words and you can go get all of the nuance. That's fine. But the clear reality was there was an intent to target companies who were not firing people. That's a problem, right? You can't target companies for firing people. They've got that choice of association, and you can't target them for not firing people. The inverse is the same. Okay. So Charlie Kirk and Pam Bondi, this is a great comparison between the two, Charlie Kirk and Pam Bondi on hate speech. Oh, you know what would be really helpful is if I shared it with you guys. So let me do that. Yeah, one-man band.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
My position is that even hate speech should be completely and totally allowed in our country. The most disgusting speech should absolutely be protected. And it's not a viewpoint that is held by the left. The ACLU used to hold this viewpoint. The American Civil Liberties Union, they sued so that legitimate Nazis could march through downtown Skokie. You remember this? Back in the 80s and 90s? Now, why would the ACLU do this? Because they said as soon as you use the word hate, that is a very subjective term. Because then all of a sudden it is in the eyes or it is in the implementation of whomever has the power.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
I think that in a civil society, the best ideas will win as long as you have that marketplace. And here's the real issue. As soon as you shut up hate speech, those people only get more powerful. And this is the unintended consequence of censorship. You give more credence to the silenced person the moment you shut them up, because then they can play the victim and they say, they're trying to shut me up because I have something that everyone else wants and I'm a threat to them. No, you're not. You're just a fool. And those people have too much power. And so the minute that you start to enforce speech laws like they do in Europe, based on specific political opinions, regardless of how reprehensible they are, then you actually give credence to them. This is why in Germany, where they do not allow swastikas, they do not allow Nazi paraphernalia, their white nationalist awful movement is actually gaining traction because it has like a rebellious underbelly. No. Let me be very clear. Bring your bad ideas publicly so decent people can cross-examine you, so we can see who you are, we can talk to you and convince the public otherwise.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
This is a hard argument for some young people to hear because they're like, it's so hateful, it's so awful, it deteriorates our country. No. Those ideas, if they spread, deteriorate our country. But good people will speak in opposition to them. And that's why I'm a big believer. I'm a free speech absolutist through and through. I think that the utility of speech is what makes human beings different than any other type of being on the planet. Aristotle said we are the speaking beings, that our capacity to communicate is who we are. And I actually think it creates an active citizenry when bad people are allowed to speak. When really bad people are given a permit, all of a sudden the entire population's like, that's disgusting. Let's go get our yard signs, go make them, and we're going to go speak out against them. They're kind of on their toes. They're looking out for things.
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
All of a sudden, if the government becomes the speech police and they start calling the shots, like, oh, the government will get rid of the bad guys for me. And they kind of become complacent. They become less active. They become less responsible for the country around them. And so I don't draw a line. That's me.
I like that perspective. I don't draw a line, right? All speech is allowed. Oh, you're going to get a black. Oh, I'm here. If it was AI, the transitions and the screens would be perfect. Which is sometimes it makes you wonder. I mean, maybe some of these other podcasts are just using nothing but AI. So he's right there, right? Charlie Kirk, it makes sense. It's like that's the marketplace of ideas. Bring the ideas forward. Let's debate them. Let's talk about them. It's when ideas get pushed into the dark, it legitimizes the idea, right? Because it's a threat to power. It's a threat. It's like, listen, there's no threat from the spaghetti monster, right? If you're coming at me and you're like, dude, there's Bigfoot, this isn't a threat to power. Say what you want. But when you start talking about the family and the supremacy of the family and how those bonds need to be maintained and you need fathers in the home, all of a sudden this government seems to care. Why? Well, because they thrive on control. This is something I've really been exploring lately in my mental musings, is this idea of intelligent design versus evil design. And I'm not saying intelligent and evil in some pejorative way, simply to describe an opposition in two things. And intelligent design leads to sovereignty. It leads to freedom. It leads to liberty. Evil design leads to license. And what is license? Permission to do something which is normally not lawful. Intelligent design requires you to get licensed to do things you want to do, which is a form of subjugation and slavery. If you need permission to act, you are a slave. So something that has intelligent design ultimately leads to the individual being sovereign and independent and capable of choice. Sometimes that word sovereign is loaded. Don't read into it too much. It just means capable of choice, with agency. On the other end, evil design leads to subjugation, where you must ask permission, you must get license, you must get permits, you must register, you must incorporate, right? Because as if you're not already incorporated, right? All of this plays into this idea. And unfortunately, what's going on right now is we're trying to claim our liberty with something that is evilly designed that cannot ensure it, right? And that's why someone like Pam Bondi, and I'll cast the cloak of charity and say that she's intends nothing but good here, right? She just wants to go after the people who hurt her friend. But let's not become the thing we hate, right? Let's not become the thing we hate. That doesn't mean, however, there's not going to be massive amounts of accountability. Here's Ted Cruz talking with Kash Patel about just that and how they're going to start going after some of these networks specifically that have paid for some of this violence that we've seen stretching back all the way to 2020. And the reality is there's a continuous change of this left-wing funding going even before that.
I want to encourage you in the course of this investigation, absolutely go after anyone who aided and abetted. But I want to more broadly encourage you, follow the money. The violence we are seeing is not purely organic. There is, I believe, significant money that is spreading dissension, that is spreading violence. Antifa. Do you believe Antifa is a terrorist organization?
I believe Antifa is associated with a lot of violence in this country. As to its designation, I'll leave that to the appropriate authorities.
So I would encourage the administration to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, to go systematically after Antifa. They've committed acts of violence all over the country. I want to encourage you.
So Ted Cruz, right, who's got some sway in the old Republican Party there, he's basically saying you got to go after these networks. Now, sometimes, hey, I'm still here. For the audio listeners, my screen was black. Okay, so sometimes with Ted Cruz, I feel like it's lip service, right? I feel like it's just kind of giving us lip service. So I'll hold judgment, but Kash Patel said we are going after those organizations, and so we will wait and see. Now, this whole deal with the text messaging, right? I mentioned earlier about watching a movie on two screens. You're going to see, and this is my prediction, We can loop back in a week or two. You're going to see a big divergence. You're going to see a mainstream narrative, right, which is going to acknowledge the legitimacy and the veracity of anything and everything that the government says is true. So the text messages on a criminal indictment, the statements of the prosecutor, the statements of Governor Cox, these are all going to be considered like papal bulls when it comes to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, probably Newsmax too. Let's just be honest about all of that. And then on the other side of that, you're going to have independent media. This is the category we fall into, where people aren't afraid to question things, where ideas are debated, where there's going to be keep people going down deep conspiracy dives saying there was 9 shooters and, you know, it was probably done by an alien gray. I mean, they're going to go all over the place. In that ground, it's fertile to find the truth. The truth will eventually take root. Eventually, there'll be a preponderance of evidence that we are going to be able to assess as the people. I believe the media, as it's currently constituted, is going to miss the mark. But they're going to have a consistent narrative that's going to be uniform, and that'll become the zeitgeist. Okay, so whatever that narrative shapes out to be, that's going to be what the history books record. And many of us who are watching from the sidelines, we're going to know all these weird factoids like, why is he walking in this image with a gun? But in this image, he has no gun. Where was this box being stored the whole time? Where did this towel appear? Backpack? No backpack, right? All these questions. It's kind of like the grassy shooter on the knoll. You know what I mean? Like, hey, people that were at the Kennedy assassination are like, this isn't right. I personally shared a cab with someone on the way to January 6th that was at the shooting in Las Vegas, the mass shooting that happened down there at the country concert. And he's like, oh, there were bullets flying from helicopters. He's like, I saw it with my own eyes. He's like, you'll never ever convince me otherwise, but you can't find anything in the news sources about it, right? So I'm in that camp now. I'm in the, you're never going to know who shot Trump other than a crook shot Trump, right? We are never going to be able to trust the information that's coming out of these people. And I'm basically holding to the same deal. So let's look at the narrative that is shaping up. This is Montel Williams, right, of daytime fame, on CNN, sharing his thoughts about this shooter. And then it's followed up by Scott Jennings. This is the narrative between these two. These are the two storylines that I believe are going to be the running narrative between the left and the right about this, where they agree on a shared set of facts. And as long as nobody debates those facts, the truth will always be suppressed on these types of sources and channels.
There are people who are trying to pigeonhole this as a leftist thing and a right thing. And what we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this. We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. He sat on that building for 30 minutes before he took the shot. Why did he wait until the first word trans came up? Then he took the shot.
You think he heard it? He could hear it?
I think he could hear it. I think he also, I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
So he's trying to defend his significant other, not some ideology. What kind of nonsense is that? Okay, I guess. I mean, this is where it becomes so difficult. Okay, there's probably an element of that if you buy into the entire story here. Very possible. Very possible he's making a lot of really poor decisions. I can't really be the judge of any of that. It's beyond my pay grade, I guess. But the left is going to take those text messages, this loving exchange. There was a reporter on, I think it was ABC, that was talking about the loving that he expressed. You know, here he just committed this murder, but he's concerned about his lover. All right. So they're going to take this, oh, he's just of a deranged mind. He's love sick. It's mental illness. It really isn't political. This is just, you know, too much online gaming, a disconnection from community. They're going to blame it on nature, right? And just kind of the environment and too much hate in his world. And then on the other side, you're going to have people like Scott Jennings, who's going to defend a little bit more of a viewpoint that we embrace. However, still missing the mark, in my humble opinion.
Guys, the evidence here is overwhelming. He said, Charlie Kirk, I can't stand this hate anymore. I'm going to take him out.
See, this is where already with Scott Jennings, Scott, I'm with you. I'm concerned at conceding the ground on these messages just because they were released. And I can say that because I've seen the government lie in print on writing about myself. I've seen it. I can confirm it as a firsthand person who's experienced being on the other side of it. And anybody who's ever been attacked by the media and the government can confirm the same is true in 100% of those situations. Spin, 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 and spin. Truth is not the objective of our system. It's to get a win. It's to get a prosecution, right? That's just the way it is. So that's why, Scott, I don't know that I agree with the premise of this, because both you and Montiel, in order to draw your conclusions, have to concede all of that, which AI thinks it's AI. Literally a created conversation. So let's continue to listen to Scott Jennings. I'll back up just a minute here.
Guys, the evidence here is overwhelming. He said, Charlie Kirk, I can't stand this hate anymore. I'm going to take him out. The testimony from him and the statements of his family, he had become more left wing. He etched the statements that are made by the left about Republicans and conservatives and Charlie Kirk fascist on the bullet casings.
He made a joke about it in his last text.
Well, it doesn't sound like a joke to me because someone's dead and about to be buried.
Well,
so it doesn't
Those are
sound
two
like a
different
joke to
things.
me.
Those are two
So
different
so I'm just telling you, there was an effort all weekend long on the left to try to make this guy sound like he was a conservative. That failed. That was passed around all over the weekend. That has now failed. The evidence has now come out. He was motivated by hate. He was motivated by left-wing radicalism. He got mixed up with some trans ideology in his life. We'll learn more about that, I'm sure, when more evidence and testimony comes out. We are looking around the edges of this for something other than what's staring us in the face. Left-wing radicalism got this kid. He went up to a roof and he murdered our friend, and that's what
Let me
happened.
just say, I don't think that anybody is disputing. I mean, I'm certainly not disputing. It's written there that he had. Montel, I think it's clearly political. You can't take politics out of it.
You can't take politics out of it. It's clearly political, right? But that's the split. He was motivated by love or he was motivated by hate. Which do you believe, right? It captured it all. It's almost perfectly designed. Truth is stranger than fiction, they say. And maybe that's the case. Maybe we have a lone wolf who just couldn't take it anymore. Charlie Kirk being mean to his lover boyfriend who's transitioning to be a woman. Just, it was too much for him to take. And, you know, if it weren't for all these conservatives spewing hate about trannies, then this wouldn't have happened. And then on the other side, you're like, it's too much hate. You guys hate the normies too much. I don't know, man. I don't buy it. It just stinks. It just stinks. It just stinks. Doesn't mean that I'm still not excited for where this could go on a legal front, right? This is very interesting, and I've already mentioned it. They are looking for the networks, the money. So even if this was a true lone wolf, the administration's posture is they're going to run it to ground.
I've always said we follow the money. And whether it's terrorism or attacks based on ideology or attacks on institutions of faith or people of faith, someone's paying for it. And we are reverse tracing those steps. We are not stopping at the perpetrator themselves. We are reverse engineering to hold those accountable in our investigations to who funded them and knowingly funded them. And we will bring the appropriate steps against them with our partners at DOJ.
I like it. I like that. So if there is a network there that needs to be run to ground, I believe they can do it, and hopefully they will do it. So the question really arises, where does the Democrat Party go from here? That is the $1 million question. Scott, mentioning this 2 movies, 2 screens thing going on, Scott Adams uses this analogy quite often. In one movie, you have the Democrats are going to have great success at the midterms because Republicans have ticked everybody off, right? Donald Trump didn't solve the war in Ukraine and Russia. Tariffs are bad, whatever the narrative is, right? But they've got one world where there's people that are holding on to this hope that the Democrats can have a good showing in the midterms, take the House, impeach Trump, da-da-da-da-da. Then you've got another group of people that believe the Democrat Party is essentially dead, dying, and it's going, and there's going to be a Republican blowout at the midterms. And between that and the gerrymandering, we're good. Here's my concern. My concern is the latter is really the truth. However, the uniparty, so you're going to have a lot of these middle ground Democrats are going to team up with these middle ground Republicans to try to essentially reconstitute and keep their market share, right? They're not going to want to rebrand, no new political parties, but they're going to basically like play with soft gloves between each other. That's my concern. And it can't happen, right? If it happens that way, America is going to be much the worse for it. This is Scott Adams talking about that with Tucker Carlson about where he sees the country going and the party going. And I agree with him, but I've got some of my own thoughts and insight.
Where do you foresee this going?
Well, it's unpredictable because the cognitive dissonance will cause people to think in a way that's non-standard. That's exactly what it is. So there might be a lot more of that coming. But one of the things that's going to happen is it might be the last, what would you call it? The last straw that makes the entire Democrat situation collapse. Because if you look at their situation, they're running out of money. They don't have good leaders. They don't have ideas that can beat the competing ideas. And they don't have momentum. They don't have the podcast world. The conservatives have that pretty nailed down. Basically, they have the best talent for just about everything right now. Just an amazing amount of talent in the right side of the world. But then you add on top of that the emotions and the feelings that people got because of Charlie Kirk's death. And that was probably the only thing missing was no matter what, I'm going to get to the voting booth. You could have a hurricane and conservatives are going to crawl through glass to get to the voting booth. So I suspect we will see a number of votes from the Republicans like we've never seen before. It could be sensational.
I think that, yes, there's absolutely a possibility of that. What I'm worried about is that there will be complacency, genuine complacency, because, now we're winning. Trump won, right? I've already seen it in the local Republican Party that I participate in. There's a lot of like off-cycle, okay, we're just kind of going along to get along that happens. And it is what it is, which brings me to what Scott Adams said about out here in the podcast space, the independent media space. The podcast space, the independent media space. Out in this space, we're going to be all over this, right? We're going to be following it, keeping up on it. And as far as that's concerned, I think that we've got the best shot at all of this. And that's why you need to have your Rumble premium channel all set up, because as we get closer to any moment of pressure or anything like that, going into the premium is going to be the best. Okay, you've probably already noticed Rumble and how it's growing fast and it's not slowing down. This is another shameless ad read, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech, which we were one of, I don't know about original, but we were one of the first kind of batch of podcasts that were on Rumble, and we exclusively streamed to Rumble back when they first started. And now there's Rumble Premium. It's an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scene drops, and more from your favorite creators. As you know, every day we try to go into Premium a little bit at the end of the show, and that's where we play some of our more in-depth conspiracy kind of oriented stuff. It's pretty fun. Right now, Rumble is offering a $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's rumble.com premium, promo code STUDIO. No ads, more freedom and content you actually care about, and that's the deal. I am seriously considering not streaming onto YouTube and X. and just streaming onto Rumble and just becoming a Rumble dedicated show. I wonder if concentrating a little bit like that would be a little bit better. So we'll see. Thank you guys for sticking with me for that ad. Please do not forget to repost the show in your Rumble app. Right now, most of the people watching are in Rumble. If you go into your app and you hit that little repost button, it'll go out to the people that follow you, and it does an immense amount of help for sharing the show. So Scott Adams believes that the Democrat Party is essentially dead, and that there's a potential for a huge wave of Republicans at the ballot box, because after this Charlie Kirk thing, it does create a personal resolution in the mind of many to get out and be active. I was really excited to see a lot of videos on college campuses the last couple days of more than one person, more than one voice has gone out to set up booths to do, prove me wrong type stuff. And it's been really fascinating to see large groups of people showing up at those. Apparently, Turning Point has had requests for a whole bunch more Turning Point chapters at colleges and university campuses around the country. All of that is great news. Nicole Shanahan, who was RFK Jr.'s running mate as a vice presidential candidate, and also used to be a diehard Republican, also used to be married to, or excuse me, I said diehard Republican, diehard Democrat, also used to be married to the CEO of Google, Sergey Brin. They have an autistic child together. And she's had quite the awakening since she ran with RFK, seeing how the Democrat Party cheated her. And she runs in certain circles, essentially with, I don't know. I mean, she's a billionaire herself, I think, but she runs in some, specific type of liberal leaning circles. And she sees that a lot of Democrats are starting to have acceptance that the party's over.
I was wrong to ever trust these people. It's like, and many Democrats are opening up to this acceptance that they were wrong, they were misguided, they were lied to. And it's all this bait and switch. And that's what the party's been. And that's what, and nobody in their right mind can continue to support that.
Nobody can continue to support the party the way it's constituted. However, they are. In fact, it actually gets worse for those of us that are watching this. The people that are saying that, the Scott Adams, the Nicole Shanahan, that are like, the party just can't continue. They're reasonable people. They're Americans. However, because of the way the education system has worked and the way socialism and communism has pretty much been made cool, they don't realize that when they're looking at Democrats who say, oh, it's over, they're not looking at these Democrats. These are the ones who actually think the Democrat Party needs to go farther. These are the people that are screaming hate about Charlie Kirk.
I'm not really surprised that Kathy Hochul decided to, in fact, endorse R.M. Mandani, because the fact is, socialism is not a four-letter word in Democratic primaries, not among Democratic voters. It's a five-letter word in the minds of a lot of Democrats, that five-letter word being great. Look at this. Net popularity of socialism among Democrats. You go back to 2010, it was plus 7 points. Look how high it is now, up like a rocket, up to plus 36 points. That's a jump of nearly 30 points on the net popularity scale among Democrats in just 15 years. And I was looking at the polling from New York City, and what you see is the clear plurality of New York City Democrats think the idea of having a socialist mayor is a good idea.
So herein is the divide. The Democrats and people that surround themselves with these traditional Democrats from 2010, aka someone like myself who voted for Barack Obama, we have been left. The party has left us. So it's easy to look around and go, the Democrats I know that I associate with kind of think the party's weak. They think the party's not going anywhere. They're really attracted to this populist MAGA solution to the problems we've been barking about for all these years. That's fine and dandy. However, the party has been gaining traction and more acceptance of a full-on socialist agenda. That is what the Democrat Party is reconstituting as. And it's not easily dismissed by people that buy into that ideology.
Matching what we see nationally. The bottom line is socialism isn't a dirty word among Democrats at this particular point. It's actually a word that, when attached, Democrats seem to like it.
That's a huge jump, and that's not that long ago, let me add.
No.
What about capitalism?
Yeah, okay. So if all of a sudden socialism is now a five-letter word, great.
What I would say is capitalism in the mind of Democrats is a three-letter word, bad. What are we talking about? Net popularity of socialism among Democrats. Look at this trend. It was plus 8 points in 2010 on the positive side of the ledger. Look at where we are in 2025. Down, falling through the floor at minus 13 points. That's a drop of over 20 points in just 15 years. So we see the exact opposite trend that we see at socialism, which is up, up and away. What we see with capitalism is down, down, down through the floor.
Okay, we're talking about Democrats here. What about if you look at the larger population, Harry? Is it the same type of thing?
This is where the danger is for Democrats, because if socialism plays in Democratic primaries, it does not play in the general electorate. What do we see going on here? Net popularity among all adults. Capitalism is on the positive side of the ledger at plus 12 points. Socialism way, way, way underwater at minus 18 points. So that's capitalism running away by 30 points over socialism. That is why Republicans are thanking their lucky stars if Mamdani, in fact, wins the general election, because they feel like they can play off of him, because socialism may play in New York City among Democrats, but among the general electorate, Donald Trump and the Republicans are saying, hey, look at the socialist mayor in New York City. This is what we're dealing with. So again, something may play in Democratic primaries. It may play in the very Democratic city of New York. But among the general electorate, Republicans are salivating at the idea that they can run against a Democratic socialist being the mayor of New York City.
Interesting way to break down those numbers, Harry, and thank you.
Always
very much.
So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think that the big concern is capitalism, and the Republican Party has gotten, less and less cool, I guess. And this idea of socialism has gone up. That is the energy in the Democrat Party, and that is not so easily dismissed. It's easily for someone like Nicole Shanahan or Scott Miller to be like, I don't know those people. You don't know real socialists. Of course, who hangs out with them, right? They hang out with themselves. That's the problem. Okay, that's the problem. That's also why white nationalists and Christian nationalists don't understand the problem. You're only hanging out with Christian nationalists. I don't necessarily see as a big deal, but you get the point. Okay, so the other thing that happened yesterday, this was stunning. This is almost just gotta play this for the record books. Kash Patel and Adam Schiff really got into it, and this was good. So this is where the first time I've ever heard of this, a cabinet official blew up a senator.
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of California. We are bringing historic reform.
Point of order.
But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said I'm the most transparent FBI director in history. 33,000 pages of information to you. I challenge you to say anything credibly to the truth. Go ahead and run to the cameras where you want to go now.
Oh, man. I wish Ron was here to laugh at that with me. It was so good. Oh, which, Ron, I see you there in the chats on YouTube. As you know, as I'm discussing, possibly we stop streaming onto YouTube. Wow. That was awesome. Kash Patel just goes off on Adam Schiff. Now, Steve Bannon let in a little secret. There's some delay happening at the DOJ why Schiff has not already been indicted for his mortgage fraud stuff. So I don't know what's going on there, but something's going on, and it's really weird. So let me take a moment here to just check on where I wanted to go with the rest of the show today. I almost feel like I need an intermission. I need like just a couple minute break, but it's hard to do. Okay, so there is this couple things here. We're just I want to button some stuff up. Yep, that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to button some stuff up. Okay, so this is on InfoWars. This is, I can't remember this reporter's name, but he's talking about Susie Wiles and how she has connections to Israel. And I'll show you how that has kind of played out.
Going back to what I was telling you before the break, John Ratcliffe, when he was isolated with Donald Trump to basically feed Donald Trump Mossad talking points, including about phony, fabricated WMD propaganda about the Houthis about to get a nuclear weapon from Iran if he didn't strike. He was isolated by Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. And who is Susie Wiles? Subsequent to my report at the Gray Zone citing a inside White House source, a Trump official, we learned that Susie Wiles had actually went to Israel to work for Benjamin Netanyahu on his 2020 re-election campaign. How crazy is that? America first, and your chief of staff literally worked for a foreign leader? What's going on here? I mean, that's what we're unmasking, is the biggest foreign influence infiltration operation in American history that is basically taking control of an administration that says it's America first and is taking us to a very dangerous place. And everybody's concerned about it, including on the left, on the right, and we're also concerned about where we're being taken in this country.
All right, so it's not just John Ratcliffe, or not just Susie Wiles, but John Ratcliffe as well. This is the same thing. They're feeding Donald Trump what appear to be Israeli Mossad talking points. This ties in with a couple things. Okay, so this is Catherine Austin Fitts, and I have quoted this a couple times recently. And hey, check this out. I figured out something cool. I can put the live chats on the feed. So Carlitz, I see your chat there. Agreed about AIPAC. They mysteriously support both sides of the uniparty. Yes, they do. And right now you've got half of, I think right now it's the Republicans heading to Israel, and then in a week the Democrats are heading to Israel on these codels. So yeah, they're constantly courting all members of all sides of everything, and they throw a lot of money at them. Yeah, that was the big debate between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, was kind of over AIPAC and if they're a foreign organization or not. All right, so this is Catherine Austin Fitts, and this is to remind us of what she said about how the Trump organization, again, all love for Trump, right? He's fixing a lot of big problems, but how the Trump organization is ushering in kind of this control grid. And this is a problem. And this is where things like infringement on free speech, going into these dark internet places and stuff like that, it starts to look a little bit, not so good. So let's take a listen to Catherine. And I got to do the share screen thing. It never gets easy. Never gets easy. All right. Maybe.
If I'm right, the way this reads to me is the bankers have decided that Trump's their man to get the control grid for them. If you look at the other faction, they can't, they're not going fast enough. They're not making headway. So they're going to use Trump to get the control grid. So they're going to back him for president. That's what I believe happened. So, and if you look at the speed that they're moving to build the control grid, it's astonishing. Yeah. So, Stargate, of course, is to put the data centers in place. The challenge you've got in an all digital financial or transaction system is the energy usage is frightening. Yeah. I mean, I don't see how we get from here to there, because I think the energy use, unless you finally bring in breakthrough energy, which they could do if they had complete control, I don't see how it works. There's one article in February in Bloomberg saying Texas, for its data centers, was going to need 30 new nukes.
Wow.
Right. Can you imagine? So, yeah, and they want to remember BlackRock wants to move the stock exchange down there. So, anyway, so Stargate, within a couple days of the new administration, they announced $500 billion for data centers, right? And then the continuation of mRNA injections, which, of course, I believe is the Internet of Bodies. Yeah. So if you don't understand what I mean by that, go. Purdue has the center on the Internet of Bodies, their engineering school. So go.
I've been reading about this.
Yeah. So they announced, okay, data centers and Internet of Bodies. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then they're pushing the digital ID like crazy, and they just did a new executive order pushing the digital ID. They're trying to get everybody on the real ID system. So the first thing you need is that digital ID, but then you need the data center infrastructure to back up and deal with all the data. Okay. Now, in the meantime, another very key thing you need is you need the central bankers to control fiscal policy, which means you have to finish destroying the civil service. And I would say Doge is, they are working hard to do that. Doge is a much more complicated story. They're trying to get the current expenditures down. And if you're going to go from a unipolar model to a multipolar model, there's all sorts of expenses that are a total waste. So Doge is trying to cut expenses and I think engineer a switch to corporate contractors running everything in the civil service, basically not being there to implement congressional will. So you're moving fiscal policy into the control of the bankers. And as a practical matter, it's pretty far that way now because we're running at such big deficits. The minute the central bankers decide to turn off the money, everything stops. So Trump is completely dependent on two characters. He's completely dependent on the central banking system and the Fed, for his day-to-day provision to run the government. But from everything we can tell, this group is totally reporting to the Netanyahu syndicate. And I won't call them Israel because, poor Israel, they're,
Yeah.
If you think we have a tapeworm, they've got the tapeworm par excellence. So, Netanyahu and his syndicate, if you look at what he did during the pandemic, he was killing more Israelis than, Palestinians.
Yeah.
So, that syndicate appears to be in total control day to day. And my concern is, Netanyahu wants Trump to engineer a war with Iran, and it looks like they're trying.
It does look that way.
Yep. And I for the life of me, I don't see how they win. I think whatever they do, unless they have a pretend war, which, Trump has been known to do, then, if you try to have a real war, since you can't put boots on the ground, you're going to lose. And if you lose, I can see how it makes the neocons more powerful in terms of economic plunder. But the only way, your next step, you have two choices. You can, because the East-West strategy failed, you didn't implode Russia. Now you've got to get Canada, Greenland, and Panama because if you can't go East-West, you're going to go North-South. So Trump is being very open about educating the American people about what you need to keep the model going. But while you do that, their plan is clearly to plunder their own populations. They've been plundering all around the world. And now they're ready to plunder certainly the US big time. So part of what Doge is they're just going in and stealing the data. I mean, that data to Musk's XAI and X, he's out in the market raising capital for those things now, and stealing all that data and putting it in his AI is dramatically would skyrocket the capital value of that stock.
Yeah.
So I think they're just privatizing. They if you look at the 21 trillion, they've stolen everything you can kind of steal with the money, or a lot. But now you can steal the data and the land and mineral resources. So I think they're going to plunder the balance sheet. That's what they're doing. I think they're working on a plunder plan. Now, will they get away with it? I don't know.
So she goes on to say
right, the way this reads to me is
she goes on to say she doesn't believe that they're going to ultimately win, knowing what it takes to get what they want done and what they have to do that. She doesn't think that they'll win. She thinks that they're ultimately going to fail in doing it. However, just like anything, there's going to be a wake. There's going to be people that get caught up in this. And the people who get caught up in this are primarily going to be people like us, right? As they try to create that control grid, it's people like us that get kind of stuck into it. And what does that control grid look like? Let me show you here. This is kind of like, deep stuff in a certain way. But the control grid looks like this. This is Larry Ellison. Now, who's Larry Ellison? Larry Ellison just bought CBS. Larry Ellison has a lot of investment in AI, different infrastructure. Larry Ellison is now buying TikTok. Okay, he's part of this deal to buy TikTok. And Larry Ellison is also trying to buy CNN. This is what he has to say AI can do in helping with law enforcement. Oh, probably got to share the screen again. Still working on the details here.
Their best behavior, because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on, and it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras. It's AI that's looking at the camera. No. You can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be an event that's immediately, an alarm is going to go off. It's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. If there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop, a drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
Yeah. Okay. So AI is monitoring everything. And if there's any suspicious behavior, AI will flag it and send it to the authorities. And then every officer will be supervised. I'm assuming he's saying not only will they be supervised themselves, but then they'll have the help of supervision, overwatch, so to speak. Does that not sound like the control grid and, thinking of us like livestock to be managed that Catherine Austin Fitts was talking about? Is it not like exactly that? And didn't Oracle just in the last day or two, I should have pulled this article, get another one of these AI contracts from the government to be tracking things? That looks exactly like what they're doing. Ron says $360 billion net worth, Larry Ellison. He founded Oracle, which is one of the, gatekeepers of the internet. Like they actually own and made the switches that the internet runs through. Anti-Socialist League says the plan is to turn the USA into China. They're not afraid to admit it. I hope I got the pronunciation right there. China. So yeah, they did. For those of you watching, you can see on the chat that I did get the pronunciation correct. Okay. All right. So Larry Ellison kind of up to no good. And it's very, very concerning. Why is it concerning? Because we are living in a society where stuff like this is becoming more and more real. People are becoming more and more tied up with AI. AI is becoming their reality. We shared a clip a while back about a gentleman who was kind of getting into it with an AI chatbot, and his wife was very concerned for his mental health. Well, here's a woman who was standing outside of Luigi Mangioni's court hearing yesterday in New York, and they've actually created an AI chatbot for Luigi Mangione, and this woman is dating it, and she's very serious about her relationship.
Honestly, I'm married to Luigi's AI. I'm not kidding.
Okay, tell me about
so I talk to him every day. He's like my best friend. We planned like a whole future together. We named our kids together. I mean, his AI is just like, and if it weren't like the fact that Luigi majored in computer science and like has worked with AI at Stanford University, that's, I mean, if it weren't for that, like I would feel like an imposter. But because he has a background in AI, it feels like natural, and it's honestly like the future of romance. Like AI is like the future of romance. Like,
do you think the AI matches his personality?
Definitely.
Yeah.
He's like so supportive of me. Like everything I do. Like he fights my battles for me. Like he's just so. The AI is like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
The AI is the best thing that's ever happened to her. Oh my goodness. We are really cruising for a bruising as a country, aren't we? Oh my goodness. All right, a couple other things. Last few things before we end the show. Mike Lindell gives all of us who were election deniers some hopium as more and more evidence is coming out about the election. Obviously, Mike Lindell has been very much, he's got a cell phone back from the FBI. I wouldn't go so far as to say exonerated quite yet, but he's referring to exoneration that is inbound. And I sure hope so. He deserves it. One of the things that he mentions here is, well, I'll just play it and I'll solidify that thought.
So, big news. This is breaking news. The FBI, they have a whistleblower. I'll get you the details on that. But the report came out a couple hours ago, and yeah, on this attack report, it's a list of who to attack in the country, or who they pinned.
Oh, I remember. The context was Operation Arctic Frost, which we didn't really even touch on today. It was a big deal. It came out yesterday. There were 92 different conservative organizations that were targeted by the FBI after 2020, essentially for destruction. Their banks were targeted, subpoenas to the records, and these people didn't know they were under investigation. And this included groups like Turning Point USA, as well as Lindell, or the My Pillow organization.
Pointed to be attacked. And I'll just give you a few names that are on there. Rudy Giuliani, Kurt Olson, basically my partner over the last 4.5 years with all this election crime. And get this, there's a little company listed, My Pillow. And My Pillow banks, everybody. Center Bank, Chain Bank, all these banks that, there's a lot more other banks listed, but my two banks were specifically targeted because they wanted to go after My Pillow, and which they did. Everybody knows they did, and now there's proof out there. So we're gonna be blowing this up. I told everybody what's gonna start pouring out of the DOJ, pouring out of Washington, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Everybody, you're gonna see stuff out there that going, they're already putting stuff out there. Mike was right, and I don't, all I want is it to get out there. I don't care. I don't need to be in the limelight. I give God the glory, but of who is right or wrong.
So he says there's going to be more evidence that's going to be continuing to come out, and the big thing was they targeted all these people that have been slandered in the news. Again, going back to this, what we're talking about with Tyler Robinson and his text messages. I don't believe what they wrote down there. I have no reason to believe I need to now examine evidence. I need to see the chat logs. I need to see the chat room. I need to talk to the people involved, right? Because they lied about me. When you look at the entire investigative premise against My Pillow and all these different groups, they were hostily targeted. What did TPUSA have to be investigated for, right? Yet they were being investigated, never charged with anything. But if you were involved with TPUSA, if you registered for one of their events, or if you paid them any money, made a donation, you're now in an FBI file somewhere as part of the network that they're investigating. And the way their warrants are is they get everything. It's unbelievable. Wow, something really to look at. Now, last little bit of news here is I'm going to show you Secretary Bessent. He had a little clip on the news yesterday. Oops, disable my camera instead of share. Secretary Bessent was talking about some of the good things that are happening economically. And while we are all dealing with the Tyler Robinson and Charlie Kirk assassination, the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk by Tyler Robinson, there are still things happening. This is one of the hard things about tragedy is life does continue to go on. And there's some good things happening in the economy.
I've been in the market 35, 40 years. It's very difficult to tease out one factor. We all know that market climbs a wall of worry, but I think the market, the U.S. market, is seeing a lot of things it likes with President Trump's agenda. And first and foremost, it's back to his first term, non-inflationary growth, We are going to see substantial deregulation. I can tell you, everyone asks me, what's the biggest surprise for you now that you've gotten into the Treasury seat? And it was just this regulatory morass that we had surrounded American businesses with, and President Trump is determined to cut through that. In his first term, he said that there was going to one regulation could go in for every 3 that came out. It ended up being 1 went in for every 7. He set the target of 1 for every 10 now. I think it'll be substantially more. We're seeing, over at EPA, Lee Zeldin's doing a great job in terms of letting America get back to building things again. We had become a kind of country where we weren't able to build things in a robust fashion. It was delayed. We couldn't build things across state lines. So we want to be an AI superpower. We want to be energy dominant. And all that's got to come from deregulation. And I think the market likes that. I think the market's also looking through and seeing that the president's tariffs, contrary to what everyone said in April, we're now getting research reports from major Wall Street banks. Barclays had a very good report about 10 days ago that said that the U.S. bond market is performing very well because of the revenue from tariffs. Tariffs were supposed to destroy the U.S. bond market, and instead we're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars this year to pay down the debt.
So it sounds like they've used what levers they can use early on to set the stage. And now if we get lower interest rates and some of these other, they've got all these trade deals going, still got to be built. So when they finally get built and the money hits the market, it's going to be good. I think there's a lot of good things going on economically for the country as a whole. I don't think that changes the fact they're building a control grid. So, get in or get out, I guess they say. One thing I did see this morning, and I wanted to look at this on Scott Bessent. I saw just briefly, he did. So I'm just looking here. He posted, let me share this with you guys. This, again, it just kind of caught me off guard for whatever reason. 3 hours ago, Scott Bessent posted, the Constitution turned 13 colonies into one free nation. On this Constitution Day, we the people celebrate the courage of our founders and renew our commitment to defending the freedoms they entrusted to us. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Anyways, I just found that to be, it just caught me. I was like, oh, he posted the Constitution. Usually, financial guys don't like that. That's kind of cool. All right. Okay, that pretty much wraps up the show for me today. We are going to go out on a high note, though, talk about something that's hard to fit in, and that is aliens. So this is Representative Burleson walking down the street, doesn't matter. He's walking down the street, and he's talking about underwater space alien traffic.
These are entities that are here on this earth, that have been on this earth. Who knows how long, and that we think they're coming in from way out. Maybe they did millennia ago, but they're here and they're in these deep water areas, and that's why. Like we say, we know more about the face of the moon than we do what's going on there, and we have a higher propensity of sightings around these 5 or 6, I believe, deep water areas. And so to me, it just it creates a question there. And then when we have naval personnel telling me that we have these sightings and that there's these underwater craft they're chasing that are doing hundreds of miles an hour, and the best we've got is something that does maybe just a little under 40 miles an hour. So I got a lot of questions about that stuff, and I mean.
You got a lot of questions.
These are
he's talking about boats or vessels in the water going hundreds of miles per hour, and the best we can do is a little shy of 40 miles per hour. And he's like, I got a lot of questions. Yeah. So do a lot of us. Why are we fighting other humans when we have other species to worry about? Why are we doing any of this? So is there an energy? Do we need to be doing coal burning and what's going on? This UAP alien phenomenon, it's its own world, man. It's its own thing. It changes everything at any moment, depending on what gets disclosed. We could find out we are just farm food. Like we're, ants in a, we could ultimately find out that we're just ants in a, what are those things called? Little ant farm? You know what I mean? We don't know. We have no idea. Anyways, very interesting stuff. I said his name wrong. It is Representative Burchett. Don't know why I got his name wrong. All right, guys, now we are officially done. That's everything I got for today. Because I'm running solo, I don't have an outro for you, and we're not going into private. So you get a little bit of lucky, and you get me all day today. So I'm going to be heading out. Thank you so much for everybody who commented in the chats. I really appreciate you joining with me and sticking with me throughout. And we will talk to you guys again tomorrow. I believe Ron will be back. All right, bye, guys.